Good afternoon. Thank you so much for tuning in to WW&S's Tuesday Talks. I'm Kimberly Miller, the managing editor of WW&Ista.com, also known as the Virtual Sisterhood for Philanthropic Women. And I'm really excited today because our special guest and WW&Ista member, Elaine Honig, is sitting with me and is going to share some information with all of you about an event series that she founded and produces across the country called Wine, Women, and Shoes. And I've actually had the pleasure of attending Wine, Women, and Shoes in the Napa Valley. It's essentially a fashion show, shoe fashion show, featuring various event elements, a luncheon, shopping, etc. And it's just so much fun. She does it across the country in various cities, just short of 20 events. And each event benefits a different charity or nonprofit within each city. So my first question for you, Elaine, is how did Wine, Women, and Shoes begin, and what was your approach in deciding the cause to align with the events?
I don't know everyone else's experience with getting involved with philanthropy, but for me it was very organic. It began because I was working with a group of women who wanted to do women's wine events. And then I also happened to be sitting on the board of Planned Parenthood at the time in Napa Valley. And we were having the usual conversation of, oh my gosh, how do we make a fresh event and raise money, because we all need to raise money. So at the same time, I'd also, the week before, happened to have some random conversation with a friend of mine about wine and shoe pairing instead of wine and food pairing. So all of those little stars aligned, and I found myself sitting in this meeting saying, what about a wine and shoe pairing event as opposed to a wine and food pairing event? And thinking, this is going to go over like a lead balloon. But the group actually looked up and said, oh, that's kind of a fun idea, let's do it. All of a sudden I thought, shoes, wine pairing, Wine, Women, and Shoes, and the whole thing just sort of came together.
Do you find that there's a particular type of charity or nonprofit that typically seeks this event out? Like, is it typically a nonprofit that's aligned with women?
Typically it is. It's events that focus on women. What we try to do is focus on women and children. And they're events that have women at the helm.
Got it.
We present this, I'll talk to a lot of wine distributors because we have to work on the wine side.
Sure.
And the wine distributor will say, Wine, Women, and Shoes, it's a male, and he'll say, Wine, Women, and Shoes, and I don't get it.
Right.
And then you say it to a group of women, and they all are like, "Oh my God, I'm so in!
Right.
Sign me up! I want to do this."
Right.
So,
I mean, who can blame them? I mean, shoes and wine are the two best things in the world, right? What is the greatest challenge with producing the same event in cities across the country?
Ultimately, it doesn't end up being exactly the same event.
Sure.
So the events vary from city to city. I think the biggest challenge for me initially was learning to let go. Each city has its own culture, and each city has its own team. And my job is to allow the local organizers to look like heroes,
Sure.
and for me to get out of the way, while helping them look like heroes.
What was one unusual or original event element you added to one of the events, or maybe multiple events, that contributed to its success? I know you have the shoe waiters.
We call them the shoe guys.
The shoe guys.
That was probably the most original concept that came out.
And tell our audience, what are the shoe guys?
The shoe guys are men that make women feel great.
Got it.
And not shy. So they carry shoes on silver trays like a waiter would present an hors d'oeuvre.
So cute.
And they flirt respectfully.
Sure.
And
they tempt with
the
product.
And then the tray gives them a prop,
right,
to come up and interact and have conversation. And when you're at a party with all women, it's kind of nice to have men there.
Sure.
And it's particularly nice to have men there who are there to sort of, hey, you just look dynamite today, and let's talk about these shoes.
Right.
So I would say that was probably our most original concept. I have to say that what we found is there is no formula. We shake it up. So every city, some cities do a luncheon. Sarasota has a fabulously successful luncheon. A lot of cities, the majority of our cities do like a Thursday night girls' night out.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And one of the things we need to be mindful of is if we have sponsor, VIP or patron level tickets, how do you add value to those patron level tickets? So many times that means a seated component for them. Okay, so if we're going to seat them, what are we going to do with them once we seat them so that they have, so that we can justify them spending an extra $100 a head on this patron level ticket.
And to your point of the ticket price, it's such a great point, and I'm often so conflicted about which events to attend based on, asking price for a ticket. Is there a particular ticket price that you found, is kind of the accepted for for what the event is, if that makes sense, or does it just totally vary by city?
Totally varies by city. We have, we range anywhere between $85 in some cities, which is just a basic, come in the door, have a, tasting and shopping and some nosh,
right.
Probably not a sit-down fashion show, to $250 to $300.
Next, what has been the greatest lesson learned upon conclusion of the year's events?
I mean, there's things that are lessons learned that are like, ooh, ouch, we're not going to do that again. And then there's lessons learned that are like, holy cow, we had an aha moment.
Right.
This sponsorship, Shoe Guys, I had no idea that sponsors would want to be Shoe Guys.
Interesting.
And then at the end of this event, the Shoe Guys actually came up, and the sponsors, these were $10,000 sponsors.
Okay.
And so they had already donated that much money to the event. And they actually came up at the end of the event and said, we had so much fun, we would pay to do this.
No kidding.
So, okay, well, you've already paid, but we'll take your money again.
Right.
Certainly.
Oh my God, that's so fantastic.
So, yeah, and then I would think the other thing that I was expecting this to be a really hard year for fundraising.
Right.
And it has been challenging, but our events this year are actually up. So we've actually increased revenue at Sarasota was up 40%. So most of our events, and actually Chicago was up, Napa Valley was up, most of our events are up. So I think what it goes to show is that be creative, and this is the point where you don't hold back. You need to create an event experience that's a really wow moment,
right,
and stand out.
Right, something exceptional. And this is the third or fourth year you've been producing these? Fifth
now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which is so fantastic. And do you happen to know off the top of your head collectively how much money you have raised so far? What has been the greatest lesson learned?
What I've really seen incredibly effective, and a lot of people don't think about it, is the fund to cause. And those are easy to do because you don't have to go fish out a bunch of auction lots and do lot display and lot copy. You need to find a cause that means something and specifically raise money for that cause. And people really want to contribute to those. And the fund to cause in Napa brings in $40,000 to $50,000.
Wow. Okay, so last but not least, how will you use, or how would you like to use WW&S for next year's event series?
I see this as being a great way to get the word out about the events, to talk probably to prospective charities who might be interested in partnering with us, to get the word out to people who are interested in attending, and probably also when we get an event on the books, to look at who's in a city that maybe hasn't been aware of a local cause there, that now they get exposed to it. Right. A lot of these, a big part of what we do is try to get the word out about the charities that we're working with, because so many times they're doing, all these times they're doing amazing work. Right. And it's, how do you let people know?
Right. I can't thank you enough for being here with us today and our WW&S audience. Again, I'm Kimberly Miller, Managing Editor of WW&S, and I'm so thankful to all of you for tuning in today for our second edition of Tuesday Talks. Be sure to tune in next Tuesday at 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Also, don't forget to log on to WW&S.com and play our 25 Days of Viva Cheer, and you just might be the lucky winner of a little blue box from Tiffany & Company. Thanks again, and we'll see you next Tuesday.